Hey, I'm Rich Leader, and this is the story behind my stories.
You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Ford,
Corey Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Hahn,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Charlene Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is
Rich Leader.
Hey authors, you need an editor in your life. And not just an editor, but an editor that understands you and gets what you're trying to accomplish. That's why you need to visit my good friend Scott Woodley at marlowemoss.net and let him take a look at your work. He'll give you a free sample edit. Scott can help you be the best writer you can be. Visit him at marlowemoss.net. Inspired sentences and polished paragraphs for print-worthy books at competitive rates and always on time. Offering a full range of editorial and ghostwriting services to self-published and traditionally published authors. Turn your ideas into words and see your dreams become books. On the right-hand sidebar of the website at hankgarner.com, you can find links where you can subscribe to the show, and it helps other people find the show. The more people subscribe, the higher we go in the rankings, and the easier people find us. I'd like to thank some sponsors this week for helping us bring the show to you. I, your humble host, have a brand new book out. It's called The Pandora Codex. Oliver Weber, Book 1, A Closely Guarded Secret, A Stolen Artifact, and a Madman Trying to Open a Portal to Hell. Can Oliver Weber become the hero he's meant to be? Pick up the Pandora Codex now. It's the first book in the Oliver Weber series. The second book, Jacob's Ladder, comes out very soon. Go ahead, dig into this series. Grab it now. You won't be disappointed. My friend Patricia Gilliam has a new series called Series Craft 101, and she has a series of books, the Fictional Character Creator Workbook, Setting and World Building Workbook. If you are looking to put together a long-running series like Patricia has done, these are some things that she's learned and that she can help you to get on top of that makes managing a long series much easier. Go check it out. There's a link in the show notes, and we'll be talking about it more. Bocara Brumley has a new book called Imani Earns Her Cape. It's a middle grade novel. You might have heard us talk about it on the show just a week or so ago when Bocara was on. A 12-year-old Imani should be celebrating the most important day of her life by eating myrfruit, casting flying spells, and laughing with her mother, but there's just one massive problem. Her mother's been kidnapped by a giant troll, and now Imani is lost in the Fey realm with no way home back to Virginia. Completing her rite of passage alone is inadvisable, but if Imani doesn't want to lose the only family she's ever had, she may have no choice. Transportal train travel, underwater cities, submarines, sea dragons, and unexpected family all combine in Imani Earns Her Cape. Thanks for listening to the show. At the end, as always, we have an audiobook clip from my friend Richard Gleaves, the Jason Crane series. Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I'm really excited to have my new friend Rich Leader on the show with me. Rich writes funny, dark comedies with a noir twist that are a ton of fun, highly irreverent. And, we're going into summertime pretty soon, and these are some amazing summer beach reads, so I hope you'll pick some up. Welcome to the show, Rich.
Thanks, Hank. Thrilling to be here.
I appreciate you saying that. You have heard the show before, I think, so you know that we begin each show with the same question, and that question is, what's your first memory of wanting to be a writer or storyteller?
Okay, so the answer is really two parts, okay? So there's the first time that I thought I wanted to be a writer, and that's about, I want to say, 8th grade. So I'm about 13 years old, and I said to myself, this is what I want to do. I want to be a writer. I know that year in school we put on a Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In variety show in school, and I wrote the thing, and I loved being the writer, and I loved making people laugh, and I knew at that age that I was going to be a writer. I was conscious of the fact that I actually was a writer earlier than that. When I was, this is all true now, I'm telling you the truth, when I was like 7, 8 years old, you know how little boys have army men?
Yeah.
And they smash them together and they make those smashing sounds and gun sounds and, you know, they just throw them around the room. My army men sat in a circle around a campfire and read each other letters from home.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, they had backstories and kids and nicknames and pets, and they went to school somewhere, and they had favorite foods, and they were married, and they had lives. And I was a writer then. I have never not been a writer all my life.
I so love that, Rich. And, you know, there's a reason that I start the show with that question. There's several reasons that I start the show with that question. One is it almost always takes us back to a happy memory that puts the guest at ease, and I like to begin with a happy thought. And most of us as writers, you know, we recognize that there's something back there, and like you said, so that's one reason. But the other reason is that I really like to connect people to that first inclination, that before there was money involved, and before there were readers that we have to appease and keep writing books for, and before all of the stress that comes with being a writer, there's the pure art and joy of storytelling. And I think you are the prime example of that. You were always a writer. You were always a storyteller, and it was just going to come out one way or another.
Yes, that is exactly true. But I have a question.
Yeah.
There's money involved?
Yeah, most of it is you spending to get your books out.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. What were you going to say?
If you're doing this for money, if you intended to tell stories for the purpose of income, then you are doing it wrong. That's not the purpose of it. If that's a happy accident from publishing your own books or having a major publish your books, that's wonderful. But that cannot be the reason you do it, or you are doomed to frustration.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it. I think there are people out there that do it, but I guarantee it feels like they're punching a clock and going to work and then punching out and then getting on with their real life, you know, air quotes after that, instead of the storytelling pouring out of who they are.
Yes, I'm the pouring out kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, you know, Rich, when you have such an early memory of storytelling and knowing that you're going to be a writer, a lot of times when you get into your upper years of high school and then go to college, the pull of being a responsible adult starts tugging at you, and a lot of us go and get responsible jobs and then, you know, start raising a family and all this kind of stuff. And then the lure of writing, calls back. Was that the case for you, or did you pursue writing as a career right off the bat?
Well, I went to college in Pennsylvania and then immediately moved to Manhattan after that, where I wrote songs and played in bands all over the city, all original music all over the city. And I did that for a bunch of years. But while I was doing that, I took screenwriting classes at the New School, which is a really funky school in Greenwich Village. And I took classes there about screenwriting because I always loved movies. And one day somebody said, you know, people write those. And that was shocking to me. What? Somebody's writing that? You mean it doesn't just happen? They don't just turn on the camera? And so when I realized, and then I read a few scripts, I said, I have to learn how to do this. So while I was playing at Tracks and GPs and Kenny's Castaways and the Dugout and Folk City and all these places all over the city, I was taking screenwriting classes at the New School. And then eventually I came to the realization that I was exceptionally average at music, that I was going to pursue writing because that's where my heart really seemed to be. And we moved to L.A. Soon after that, and I got lucky in Los Angeles. I made a lot of movies, and that's what happened to me. I pursued it. I wanted to be a screenwriter. Being a novelist came later. I was a screenwriter for many, many years. I still am. And I went after it hard. I moved to LA to do that, and then I was incredibly lucky enough for that to happen.
Well, Rich, do you feel like that, because there are a couple of pieces to that story there. Immediately after college, you moved to Manhattan to go pursue music, and then you left there and you went to California to go pursue screenwriting and to get into that world. Did the physical location and the act of physically moving and packing up your belongings and going to pursue this other thing, was that a tangible thing to you? You could have pursued screenwriting in New York. Granted, that's not where all of the movie studios and things are, but you could have written scripts there. But did the physical act of moving to another place have an effect on that?
It did. I wanted to be a part of L.A. I wanted to be an L.A. screenwriter, a Hollywood screenwriter. And to do that, at least to get started, you had to be there. It's true that after you're established, you can move somewhere else. But I wanted to be a working screenwriter in Los Angeles. I was already a little older. Remember, I already spent a decade in New York City playing clubs. So I was ready to shoot for a career as a screenwriter, which in retrospect was totally insane. But luckily, my wife was like, "Yeah, let's go. We got nothing here. So
Right.
Let's go."
Right.
And I said, "Okay." So we owned an old Mercury Monarch, which the driver's side window was broken in the halfway position.
Nice.
And we didn't have any money to fix it. So we drove across the country with the window half open no matter the weather. And we got to L.A. and we were there. I was in Southern California for 15 years making movies.
Wow. We hear these horror stories of people that, step off a bus or get out of the car, going to be a star and, falling to the worst possible circumstances, because when you get to Hollywood, it's when you scratch past the surface, it's never as glamorous as it seems. Yet here you arrive with this, probably naive assumption that you can just go and do this thing, and you get there and you just go and do it. What was how you said you were incredibly lucky, but what was your lucky break?
I'm reasonably good at it, I think. There are lots of good writers, and I think I'm one of them. But it's just never quitting, and I think there's a lot to be said about naivete. When you don't know that it's impossible, then you try to just doing it. And then pretty soon, if you're still out there, if you're still digging when the wheel comes around again, there's a shot that it grabs you. And I had written a script that got a lot of attention, got me an agent, and then was produced by CBS as a Sunday night movie. And right from that moment on, I worked nonstop.
I'm a big fan of naivete, that if you don't know that you can't do something, then there's nothing stopping you from just doing it.
Exactly. I try to live in that. I try to live right there.
Yeah,
not knowing anything.
Yeah, if you can keep from being jaded, then great things can happen. So you're living in. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it is a hard city to crack, but obviously not impossible. But it is hard. There's no doubt about that, and it's harder now than it was when I was a kid.
Yeah, I bet. Looking at your IMDb page, you have a steady stream of writing credits, from, more than 20 years ago. And there's, just steady credits every year and multiple, things a year. So you stayed busy and probably got pretty comfortable in that world, didn't you?
I did. I mean, as comfortable as you can be. That is a thing about Los Angeles, is it's not built for comfort. It's hard to describe somewhere. It's not a particularly comfortable place, and there's billions of people everywhere trying to be, and it's never quite easy. It's never easy to ascertain the truth of the thing at that moment because it's an acting city, but it's a beautiful place. And I was lucky to work a lot. That's all I can say. I had a good circle of executives and producers and directors and actors that I was a part of. And, like any group, there's a trust level that develops. And I was very fortunate to be a writer at that time in that city. So I had a really good run, and I was really happy doing it until my boys became Little League age. And then I said, I can't do this anymore. I want to coach.
So did you stop the screenwriting at that point?
I did. I would say I cut it way, way back. I moved, for one thing. It's very, full-time and a half-time, again, on top of that, to afford your house. You have to really dedicate your entire life to writing at that point. And I really wanted to coach my boys and volunteer be on the PTA and be in the classrooms. And, that was important to me. So we moved. We changed coasts. I went to North Carolina. I went from one beach to the other beach, and I did all of the things that I always imagined fatherhood, would and should include. I volunteered in the schools. I was in the PTA. I went on all the class trips. I coached every possible sport that was possible to coach. Sports that I had no idea how to play, I coached them anyway. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to be hyper involved as my children grew up. So it was an important thing for me. I worked my first maybe 6 years here. I flew back and forth. And then I found novels. And then I really stopped.
Rich, your novels are this really unique, refreshing blend of dark humor, and they're really funny. That's one thing I was not really prepared for. Was that it's this really kind of classic mix of noir, gumshoe detective. Almost, and with a really dark, funny sensibility. Where does that combination of genres come from?
I think it comes from people. It's a great question. It comes from people I love and admire and respect. People who make me laugh or make me cringe. I'm a big Tarantino fan. I think he's one of the funniest filmmakers out there. He just loves blood and guts, but he's hilarious.
Right.
He's a hilarious writer, and he's really funny. And I'm a giant Monty Python fan. For 30 years, those guys have been making me laugh, which is a long time to make somebody laugh for 30 years. And I guess it's all just mixes up inside you and comes out. Let There Be Linda or McCall and Company or Cooking for Cannibals. It comes out that way. I love to be funny. I think I can teach more. Not that I'm teaching, but I think I can impart more emotion if the reader is laughing than if they're pissed or if they're depressed or if they're otherwise unemotionally engaged. So I guess my hook is the laughter. I try to get you laughing and then maybe sneak in some human truth.
Oh, yeah. And you can do a lot if you get people laughing. People will, their guard comes down when they're laughing.
Yes. They're definitely more open. Look, the primary thing, I like to make people laugh. And that is all of my life. Even as a little kid, I was always trying to make people laugh because it made people happy. Everybody's happy when they're laughing. So I guess my goal number one for me is to write a funny book. I want it to be funny. I love to tell stories. I think I'm a pretty good craftsman, so I know how to build a story and I know how to build a character. And then if I can frame that story with humor, that's my goal. I want you to read something that's fun and funny and easy to read. When you're done reading, you go, that was great. That was fun.
Rich, you've definitely made a niche for yourself in publishing with the kinds of stories you write. Are these books reflective of the kind of work you were doing in Hollywood, or did writing novels allow you to completely shift gears and do something completely different?
Dang, Hank, that is such a great point solid question. It's so great. No, I wrote basically the diametric opposite of this in Hollywood. So I wrote Lifetime movies, Hallmark movies, CBS Sunday night movies, NBC, ABC, lots of television movies, and they were almost exclusively family drama. So, for instance, Hallmark or Lifetime would say, who could we get to make America cry? And then they would go, I know, let's get Rich. Rich can make America cry. And so I wrote tons of those movies that would make America cry. Deeply emotional, powerfully moving, emotionally engaging family drama. Family awesome, family falls apart, family gets back together. Family drama. I wrote so many of those. Now, I write lots of other things, too. I wrote feature film spec scripts when I was there, of all different genres. But when I got to this point where I wanted to let my humor shine through, I wanted to be funny in the way that I like to be funny. And so that meant writing a book. And so I wrote a book called Juggler Porn Star Monkey Wrench. And those are the three, and it's a Hollywood story. Those are the three. I stayed close to home for my first book. And that's the story of a screenwriter who is just coming through a divorce, and we meet him this last 6 months when he finally survives the divorce. And those are the women in his life: the juggler, his wife, who's literally a juggler, a porn star, and the monkey wrench is the woman who he truly finally falls in love with. And it's just a crazy Hollywood story. Some of it is exactly true. Some of it is inexactly true. But all of it is true enough. Those are all, people I know and met and all of that, and things that happened to me. And so I started with that. And that was the first time that I could, get in the minds and thoughts and feelings of the characters, to literally write the thoughts of what was in the head of the characters. You simply can't do that in a script. All thought is in a script, in a movie, all thought is conveyed by either action or dialogue. There is no thought in the script. You don't get into the character's head. You don't hear their thoughts or read their thoughts. And I so wanted to be that much more wrapped up in my characters. And so the novel was it was just liberating for me. I couldn't believe how fun that was to write like that. And then after that came the McCall series, and then Let There Be Linda, and then now I'm a novelist. I can't believe it.
Well, Rich, I know a lot of frustrated actors become novelists because of that same of a similar situation there. That when you're a novelist, you can absolutely control the environment that you're acting in. You can portray all of the emotion and all the character traits that you want, and you have full control over it, no matter what the script writer meant or what the director means. You have full control. I would imagine that by the same token, that this would be extremely liberating for a screenwriter as well, because now not only do you control the story, but you control how the actors behave and how they portray the character and how they connect with the emotion. Do you find that true?
I think that's the idealized version of that. The closer to the truth is once your script is done, movies are collaborative. So the script is done. Most of the time, the writer's not even present when the film is being made. It becomes the director's medium at that point, and really, it's up to the actor to decide. You only have so much control over an actor. You can write it in such a way that you feel they have no choice but to perform it as you've written it. But most of the time, they find nuance. If you're lucky, they make it better than what you wrote. That's happened to me many times, where I see a performance and I go, dang, they saw things in the character I wish I saw. That's so good. And then occasionally you see one and you go, what? Who was at the helm here? That's horrible. So you get both, but most of the time, because it's a collaborative medium, most of the time the writer is out of the picture by the time the production starts. And then it's the crew, the director, the first director, the second AD, sometimes a third AD, the actors, the acting coaches, the stuntmen. There's limitless factors that impact the quality of what you've written that have nothing to do with you. You're really not a part of it at that point.
Your books tend to be a little surreal is not the right word, because they're I think instead of surreal, maybe hyper real. It's not that they're different from real. They're visceral is maybe a good word, because you bring us close to characters that most of us will never encounter in our mundane lives, and we get to watch the most kind of absurd situations play out in the most enjoyable ways. How liberating as a writer was it to get to write these things that you probably had been thinking about and witnessing and kind of being a part of in Los Angeles, and getting to write them out the way that you had always wanted to?
I will tell you that it's so fun to write those books. It's so crazy fun to make up those situations and those people. I think the word might be outrageous.
Yeah.
But I am very careful to make them as real. Like, it's not that they're unreal. You could imagine that those people are walking the streets of Los Angeles. People just like that. But you're just looking at what they look like. You don't know how they're living. And so it always seems so real to me, even though it is outrageous behavior, and it's impossibly fun to do it, to be with those characters, to live with them, to introduce them to each other. and let them interact is hilarious and fun for me. It is liberating to passive a word. It's exhilarating to do it, to take the zombie and introduce him to food. You know what I mean? Those are to watch those two be together after inventing them. They become so real, like all writers. They become so real to me, and they're such wild characters living life in the real world. In the McCall series is New York City, and most of my other books are set in Los Angeles. And so in those outrageous places with millions and millions of people living that close to each other, there's some zaniness that goes on, and that's what I'm grabbing onto because I find it fun.
Rich, right before we started recording, we were talking about that you like to write in your series, McCall and Company, that you brought up just a minute ago, and kind of mix between those books, mix in a standalone book like Juggler or Let There Be Linda. First off, tell us about McCall and Company. Where did that series come from, and why did you decide to keep extending those characters into more books? And then after that, if you would, talk about what it does creatively for you to then get to leave that series, go write a standalone, and come back to McCall and Company.
You're good at this, Hank. So I wrote a lot of towards the end of my first round in Hollywood. I wrote a lot of murder mysteries, and I loved the genre. I loved leading the audience to the end of a murder without them being able to know who did it. That was such a wonderful challenge, really fun. I very much enjoyed the genre. And so when I came to novels, I thought that would be fun to write a funny, because I wanted to be funny, I wanted to write a fun and funny murder mystery series. And I knew I wanted to set it in New York because I know New York so well. And then it occurred to me that I didn't want a male protagonist. I wanted to write a woman. And so I created Kate McCall, who has turned out to be just a joy to have in my life. And it's so fun to lose myself in her universe. And there are a lot of writers on your show, and you talk a lot about universe building. And I don't write science fiction, although I love science fiction, I must say. And I don't write paranormal, and I write normal. I'm in New York City. But creating the universe for a person, how they travel through the world and all the people in their world and what they do for a living and how they see and feel the world, that's, to me, universe building. So it's so satisfying to be in Kate's world and to create that I didn't want it to stop. So as I was writing, I said, you know what? She's not going to catch this guy yet. She's going to have to catch him in the next book. And then she doesn't, and then she doesn't, and then she doesn't. So in each book, she has one crime that she's going to solve, and yet she's on the trail of the guy who murdered her father in each book. And the stories are funny and exciting. There's always good action. I write good action. I love dialogue, so I think there's lots of good dialogue. It's not, I wouldn't call it deep. It's not philosophical in nature. It's funny, and it's fun, and it's exciting, and you have no idea who did it. And at the end, usually you go, what? I had no idea. So that's really fun to write. And then I need to get away from it because I write McCall in first person. So Kate McCall, I thought, I said, I went, I did everything through Kate. That is a really fun, rewarding way to write, but I can't just do that. I need to put down first person and get back to third person, which is the other books. Let There Be Linda is third person. There are 4 points of view in that book. Really fun to write them. And Cooking for the book I'm writing now, Cooking for Cannibals, there are 5 points of view in that book. two prominent, and then three others. So that is equally fun, and I think I need to move between first person telling and third person telling.
Rich, you said that that world building or universe building is really important, and I completely agree with you that it doesn't. That term gets used a lot for science fiction and fantasy, but it's absolutely true that when you drop someone into a book, the building of how this character moves through the world and what their expectations are and their view of the world is extremely important. Is it difficult to get into Kate's head and write not only the opposite gender as you, but you're not in New York anymore, though you used to be. Is it difficult to switch gears and to get into that mindset when you start those books?
No, it's not. She's an old friend now. I know her really well. I miss her. I'm not ready to write first person just yet, but I miss Kate McCall, and I miss all the people who live in the House of Emotional Ticks, and I miss her theater company, and I miss those people. They're hilarious, and they have great spirit, and they're weird as can be, and they're incredibly courageous, and they're maddening, and they're annoying, and they're funny. I miss them, but it's easy to go back because I know them so well. And the same is true. You can't. For me at least, I was in New York for a good full decade. It's indelible in my blood. You know what I mean? It's part of my DNA. So it takes nothing for me to be in New York. The same is true for Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles for 15 years. I was in Santa Barbara for a bunch of those, but working in Southern California. So those are part of who I am. It's not hard to go back there. It's not like I went on vacation because I wanted to set a movie there or a book there, and I was there for 3 weeks, and oh no, I don't remember. I lived there. That is who I am. Both of those places.
I love it. I know what you mean about not wanting to wrap up Kate's story and to draw that out. And as readers, I think that readers really love to meet a character that they like and to get into that extended story. That's the way we watch TV now with, everything is kind of bingeable. We want to watch an entire season of a TV show, because we want to see that meta narrative, that long arc that goes all season, sprinkled in with the adventures of each episode, and seeing that the character solving something and growing a little bit through the season while they tackle this larger problem. And it seems that you're kind of tapping into those sensibilities with McCall and Company.
Yes, I think that's all wonderfully said, and I agree with all of it. Yes, and yes, I am. I like the longer arc for her, and I like the more episodic crime that she's going to solve within that one book. And yet, tracking the killer, the guy who murdered her father, is going to take 5-6 books.
Because you do have the series and a couple of standalones, if someone is just coming to your work, where do you recommend they start?
Yeah, it depends what they like to read. Let There Be Linda, I imagine, is not everyone's cup of tea. It's dark, and it's bloody, and it's violent, and it's hilarious. And probably, if you like dark comic thrillers, you should start with Let There Be Linda, because it is an incredibly unique book. There are very few books like that. It's sort of in the, I guess if you were going to put me in a paragraph, I would be in a paragraph with Palahniuk. I would be in a paragraph with Chris Moore. I would be in a paragraph with Carl Hiaasen. People who are just writing sort of outrageous, funny, hopefully smartly written stuff. So if you like that, then you should start with Let There Be Linda, because you're going to have a hell of a ride. If you like murder mysteries. Well, my gosh, you're going to have a blast with McCall. It's a really fun book. That's a fun series.
Excellent.
So then you would start with the first McCall book, which is called Workman's Complication.
The titles for the McCall books are really kind of fun twists. Do you have a title for those before you begin, or do they come out of the writing?
No, I have it before. I had the whole series. I started with I don't know if I'll make it through 10, but I have 10 titles. So I could do 10 books.
I love it. Rich, I love what you're doing. I think it's sorely needed on our literary landscape, where people need to be able to laugh and have fun. And I appreciate that you're doing that. If people are just discovering you for the first time, where can they find you online to get plugged into your work and follow along?
They can visit me at richleder.com, RICHLEDER.com. That's my website for my writing. Or they can find me on Amazon. I have an author page there, and all my books are there.
Excellent. Rich, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show, and I wish you much success, and can't wait to check out the Cannibal book when you get finished with it.
Oh, thanks. Super fun to be with you today. It's an awesome podcast. Great job.
Thanks for listening to the Author Stories podcast. For more great author interviews like this one, go to hankgarner.com and dig through the archives. There's something there I know you'll love. Now stay tuned for a special audio clip from Richard Gleaves' The Jason Crane series.
You took a terrible risk tonight.
Why?
You don't know? The first rule.
I was told by a friend that I shouldn't reveal my gift to anyone who doesn't have a gift themselves.
That's exactly right.
Because everyone we tell dies.
Yes, you might have marked me for death.
Made you a target for a ghost. Why can't people know what we can do? What makes it so dangerous? Valerie took up the fireplace prongs and stabbed the logs.
It's called the Great Curse.
Sparks exploded from glowing crevices and drizzled upwards, ricocheting off the black belly of the cauldron, turning into tiny ashes that disappeared up the chimney.
It was cast by a powerful witch over 300 years ago.
Witch? Sorry, but witch? Please, there's no such thing. Valerie closed her eyes. A spoon leapt from Jason's dish and caught him in the temple. He wiped melted ice cream from his cheek. You were saying?
She cast the curse to stop the witch trials.
In Salem? Jason searched his memory.
1692. They burned her alive in the Salem Common. The only witch to be burned.
The cauldron smoked slightly. Its contents had evaporated. A sharp, charred scent filled the room. Wait, said Jason. There were no witches. They were just, victims of religious hysteria, right? So you're saying the witch trials were justified?
Justified? So if a witch did exist, it would be okay to kill her?
No, I just thought... You're right. Never mind.
There was one witch in Salem, at least. A woman with a powerful gift. She only wanted to protect people like us. To give the gifted their anonymity, refuge. She cast the Great Curse as she burned. She proclaimed that mortals who know a witch shall know death. And that is the Great Curse. And it's still in effect after all this time.
Mortal, as in...
Non-gifted. No mortal can know about you, about any authentic witch.
Jason winced. Isn't there another word besides that? She shrugged. So no one can know what I am, what I can do, or else they become a target.
Right. The spirit world will obey the great curse and try to kill them.
The spirit world.
The other realm.
Jason rubbed his eyes. How much of this was reality and how much of this was Valerie's nutty brand of mysticism? He felt himself pulling back, as usual, for fear of contagion. He'd spent his whole life reading science fiction. He hated paranormal tales. This was not his genre.